Hello and welcome to my channel Psychology with Samradhi. As you know, we have been learning about cognitive distortions, right? And now in this video, we'll continue to learn about more cognitive distortions. And coming to the seventh cognitive distortion, that is fallacy of fairness. Fallacy of fairness. It's very common. Everybody assumes that life should be fair. If I am putting 100% in my job, my boss must give me 100% credit, or I must get the promotion. And when it doesn't happen, that makes us feel negative. So, in this cognitive distortion, a person assumes or strongly believes that life must be based on fairness and equality. In this cognitive distortion, a person strongly believes that life must be based on fairness and equality. If I am putting 100% in my job or in my work or in my relationship, I must get 100%. These people believe that life should be based on some kind of principles. They are very focused on that social economic idea that if I give you something, you'll return me something. For example, if I'm working very hard for my company on my job and I don't get promotion but my colleague gets promotion, that will make me feel very bad. And when life is unjust, or when we do not get 100%, if we do not get the equal amount of result, if we do not get positive result for our positive inputs, for our positive efforts, we feel negatively. So if life is unjust, if life is unjust or unfair, we feel negatively and sad. Or there may be a combination of some other emotions also, negative emotions also. So this is all about fallacy of fairness. A person who has fallacy of fairness, who has this cognitive distortion, he always strongly believes that life must be based on fairness and equality. And if it does not happen, that person will feel disappointed, that person will feel negatively, will feel sad, and that creates problem in his life because he strongly believes that life should be fair, people around them should be fair, society should be fair, and it not always happens. So this is seventh cognitive distortion that we have talked about. Now moving to the next cognitive distortion, that is personalization. Personalization, always assuming self-responsible, always assuming yourself responsible for all the negative things that's happening in your life. So in this cognitive distortion, a person blames himself for each and everything negative or bad happening in their life. The cognitive distortion, personalization. A person blames himself for each and everything negative and bad happening in their life. They have this tendency that if something is happening wrong, that is happening because of me. They'll blame themselves. And this is why these people feel what? Low self-esteem. They may have or may develop social anxiety disorder, and they may create self-doubt also. So the person suffering from the cognitive distortion, personalization, they have low self-esteem, they suffer from social anxiety disorder, and they have self-doubt because everything that is bad and happening in their life or to the people around them, they blame themselves for that. For example, say if somebody's marriage is not working, right? And the wife says that it's only because of me. I am the unlucky one. I'm unfortunate. That's why my marriage is not working. Your child is not performing well in academics, and being parents, you take the blame on yourself that I must be responsible for this. I'm not taking care of him, and this is why he's not performing. It's all because of me, not because of the child. Not at all because of the child. So the negativity that they put themselves is disproportionate to their efforts, right? So this is personalization. Now coming to our ninth cognitive distortion, that is overgeneralization. Overgeneralization is also known as faulty generalization fallacy. In this cognitive distortion, a person makes broad assumptions based on one or limited experiences. So here, a person makes broad assumption based on limited experience. Let's come to one of the examples of overgeneralization. Suppose you fail one exam, avoiding taking exams because you failed in one exam, and now you think that I am going to fail every exam I. One example can be to avoid examinations. One example of overgeneralization can be to avoid examinations because you failed one exam and now you think that I will fail each and every exam that I take. Or suppose you failed in an interview and now you avoid giving interviews because you feel that you are going to fail each and every interview that you will take. So you have overgeneralized one failure as you fail always. So this is all about overgeneralization. In overgeneralization, now you know that a person makes broad assumptions based on limited experience. You have limited experience, you have just one experience of something, and now you apply that to each and every circumstance or each and every situation in your life, right? This is overgeneralization. So the 10th cognitive distortion is jumping to conclusions. Here in this cognitive distortion, a person makes assumptions based on little evidence. Now, here in this cognitive distortion, a person makes assumptions about unimportant and minor things on daily basis, and that too repeatedly. This jumping to conclusion is like making observations or assumptions about unimportant and minor issues that is happening in your life on a daily basis repeatedly, right? This is jumping to conclusion, and that can be done through two things. One is mind reading. So what do we do in mind reading? We tell about what a person is thinking, and negatively. So if I said hi to somebody and he says hi, but don't smile, you may say that he doesn't say hi to me smiling. It means that he's angry with me and he's going to end our friendship. Or we do that through fortune telling. And what is fortune telling? Fortune telling is predicting about the future based on what observations you make in the present, and those observations are not important, are not very significant observations, making assumptions about the future on the basis of very little evidence. So suppose you go to your friend's place and you see his son who is very upfront, and you tell your friend that, see, I don't see your son obeying you in the future or residing with you in the future because he's very upfront, right? So this is fortune telling. You tell about the fortune, you predict about the fortune based on little evidence, and your prediction is based on a little evidence. This is fortune telling. Then this is all about jumping to conclusions. If you jump to conclusions, it means that you have a negative thinking pattern, and that is going to create turbulence in your healthy. Now coming to the next cognitive distortion, that is emotional reasoning. I feel it, it must be true then. Whatever emotion you are feeling, you feel that because I am feeling it, it must be true. So in other words, we take our emotions as reality. Whatever I am feeling, it must be true. It is the reality. And this is why we do not look for logics and evidence. We take our emotions as evidence. So the first thing that you need to understand in case of emotional reasoning is that here we take emotions as evidence and don't look for logic and reality. Correct. So one thing which we need to understand is we take emotions as evidence and don't look for logics and reality in emotional reasoning. Because I'm feeling it, because I'm feeling this emotion, it must be true. So we take our emotions as reality. If I feel it, it must be true. If I feel bad, it must be hurtful. If something is hurtful, this is why I'm feeling bad. No? So if I am feeling bad, it must be hurtful. So we take our emotions as reality. And here is the point. Emotions are frequently inaccurate. Emotions are different from reality. So the next thing that you need to remember here is if you fuse feelings with belief, it creates emotional reasoning and leads to poor decision making. It also creates problem in attention and focus. It also hampers our focus and attention. We need to understand one thing here. One is in emotional reasoning in ER, we take emotions as evidence. We don't look for logics and reality. Secondly, you need to understand that when does emotional reasoning happen? When can you be a victim of emotional reasoning? When there is a combination of feelings with belief. I feel it. It is feeling. It must be true. It is a belief. So when you add feelings with belief, when you supplement your feelings with belief, that creates emotional reasoning, ER. And when you are suffering with ER, when you have emotional reasoning in you, then it leads to poor decision making. You can't be good at decision making, and it also affects your focus and attention, right? And you need to understand one thing. Emotions are frequently inaccurate. Keep this thing in your mind. Emotions are frequently inaccurate. Emotions are frequently inaccurate. Emotions are not reality. There is difference between reality and emotion. So those who reason their emotions, they fall victim of, they fall prey of emotional reasoning, right? So I hope it is understood now that emotional reasoning is a cognitive distortion, and here we supplement our feelings with belief, and that creates emotional reasoning. If I am feeling bad, it must be very wrong, right? If I am hurt, he must have said something bad to me. Okay, so we reason our emotions. Now, moving to our next cognitive distortion, that is blaming. Blaming is simply the act of assigning guilt or responsibility to somebody else for our actions or for how we feel, what we think, or our negative behaviors. So, you can simply understand that it is the act. Blaming is the act of assigning guilt or responsibility to someone else for fault. इसके नीचे आप. Blaming is the act of assigning guilt or responsibility to someone else, placing the blame on someone else for what? For how we feel. For how we feel. For example, you may say that you make me feel bad. Now placing the blame on other person for how you feel. You make me feel bad. You make me feel that I am not beautiful. You make me feel that I am unimportant. Right? So how we feel, right? For example, you make me feel bad. Now here you place the blame on somebody else for your feelings and what you think, what we think, how you think, how you feel. You place the blame on the second person and also for your negative actions, negative behaviors, right? So this is what blaming is all about. In blaming, you place the blame on the second person for everything that happens, usually a negative act. Usually a negative act. Placing the blame on someone else for everything that happens, usually a negative act. Right. So blaming is placing the blame on somebody else and usually about a negative thing. It's all about the negative things. If I am feeling bad, that is because of somebody else. If I am thinking bad about a person, if I am thinking that he's a bad person, that's also because he did something and he made me feel like this. And if I am into a bad habit, that is also because of somebody else. For example, placing blame on your abusive parents for your alcohol addiction. So this is blaming. So the one who blames the second person often feels resentment, anger, and even hatred for the person he blames. And the person who's being blamed, he feels defensiveness, hurt, and even angry when he is being communicated about all this. So this is all about blaming. And if you have this cognitive distortion, you will never take the responsibility for your negative feelings, for your negative behavior, for all the negative things that you are responsible for in your life. You place the blame on others and you never try to correct yourself. This is the issue here. Now coming to the 13th cognitive distortion, that is fallacy of change. What is fallacy of change? Expecting others to change for our happiness. If I want to be happy, I expect others to change. I don't just expect, I even pressurize. I pressure others to change. I am unhappy, I am not happy, I am facing problems, and I feel that others are responsible for them, right? And I want them to change, I pressurize them to change. Okay, so what is the main cause of why do I feel this way? Because I feel that other people around me are a source of my problem, or happiness. I want others to change, but I will not change. I'll not change. मैं नहीं बदलूंगा. मैं नहीं बदलूंगा. And others are responsible. Others around me are a source of my problems or unhappiness, but I'll not change. मैं नहीं बदलूंगा. Okay, this is at the core of this cognitive distortion. For example, a husband wants his wife to change a little so that their life can be happy, right? So this can be one of the examples, right? So this can be one of the examples. Okay, so in fallacy of change, you expect others to change, you think others are the source of your problem, and you don't want to change at all. You don't hold yourself responsible for how do you feel or how do you think, right? So this is fallacy of change. The next cognitive distortion is global labeling. Global labeling is also known as mislabeling. In this cognitive distortion, we place judgment on ourselves or on other person based on one characteristic or on one interaction. So, on the basis of one single experience, one single characteristic, one single interaction, we place a judgment on somebody and we use extreme language in it. For example, if a person has been coming to office late for a few days, we call him lazy. So if we are using extreme language for a person, calling him lazy, labeling him just because he is coming for us 5 or 6 minutes late to the office for the last few days. Let's take another example. Suppose somebody is reserve-minded and you label him as unfriendly or rude. It happens sometimes that we label a person, we do not want to know the context of the action, why he is late, why he is so reserve-minded, and we do not want to see through that.